Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Experiential Learning Virtual MPower Hour. This is our career speaker series, and our hope is that you'll be empowered to begin exploring your own career path. I'm Mrs. Gentine, the Experiential Learning Coordinator for Mason Schools, and my role is to try to connect you with experiences so that you can personalize your own career journey. So welcome to everyone joining us today. Mr. Reuter, our Mason Middle School Assistant Principal, and I have been working together on this virtual series. And so Mr. Reuter would like to say hello, and I think he has a few things he'd like to talk about before we introduce our speaker.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you here. Happy May 1st for whatever that means at this time. So thank you for being here. Many of you have been a part of our chats throughout the past month, so you kind of know how it functions. So we'll stay on mute to avoid interruptions, and then we'll utilize the chat feature in the top right, the little square with the lines. So as Brad is presenting, if there are some things that spark a question, you can drop them in there and we'll make sure that they get addressed.
Great, thank you so much. So Brad, it's up to you after I do the intro here. When the questions come in, you can stop and answer them if you'd like as you go along, or you can save all of them for the end. Some of the questions you may already have planned to speak about. So, it's up to you, however you want to do it. We're very casual here today.
Wonderful.
So we have two speakers that are going to be with us today. The first one is Brad Leffler, and Brad is one of my former students. I had the pleasure of having Brad in class for a couple of years for multiple classes. And I am not surprised he's out doing great things today. We're always very proud of our comments and love bringing them back to share their career journey with you. Brad was an aerospace engineering major, and he's now working in his current role in a consulting position. And I'm going to let him tell you a little more about that today and the company he's working for. And Brad, thanks for joining us. We're excited to hear all about it today.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Gentine. Thanks for having me. Happy to talk to you all. So I'll start by introducing myself. So I'm Brad. I graduated from Mason High School in 2013, which 7 years ago doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was. I kind of have always had a business mindset. When I was in high school, I started a small business. And I did 2 years in the Comet Zone, which is the school spiritware store, as a manager there. So I kind of always had that business mindset in my head. However, when I went to college, I went to Virginia Tech, and I studied aerospace engineering. So I kind of decided to take a different path for my degree. I had a couple reasons for that. So I had some models and mentors in my life. So I had my dad and my grandpa. They're both very smart people in my eyes. And they both have an engineering and a business blended background. So in talking to them, I moved forward with going for an engineering degree because they explained to me that there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of doors that are opened with an engineering or a STEM related degree. Getting that engineering or STEM related degree really shows that you have critical thinking skills, a problem solving mindset. It really helps you develop those types of skills that can be applied into a ton of different careers. So why aerospace engineering? I didn't know which type of engineering I wanted to do when I went to college, and that's totally okay. Your first year of college, at least at Virginia Tech, and I know it's similar at a lot of different universities, but you have a year where you can explore a ton of different types of engineering, or a ton of different types of functional areas within a discipline. And so I got to explore a lot of different areas, and quite frankly, aerospace just seemed the most interesting to me. And so I moved forward with aerospace engineering. So I was at Virginia Tech for 5 years. And during that 5-year period, I did 4 co-op rotations with GE Aviation, which was an incredible experience. So I highly recommend when you do further education, if you pick a STEM-related discipline, co-ops are a phenomenal thing to explore. So I did 4 rotations with GE Aviation. One was a quality engineer and one was a systems engineer. So both of those are in manufacturing plants. The third one was as a design engineer. So that was more of an office setting. And the fourth one I did it's called a field service operations engineer. And essentially what it is I had a client. My client was Delta, and I was at the Atlanta airport, and I was out on the flight line with the planes, dealing with the maintenance and whatnot. So 4 very different experiences. Why I recommend picking, if you have the choice, picking experiences that are in different areas for a co-op or an internship, is because you get to learn what you like and what you don't like. So I will say there were a couple of rotations I did that I did not care for. But that taught me that once I graduated college, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So it was really good experience. In co-ops and internships, you learn a ton. You apply some of the information that you're learning in your courses, your school courses, but you also get to learn about industry, real world examples, and you can get your hands on experience. So very, very valuable time spent there on those co-ops. Let's see. Let me look at your questions before I move on to my next point. Yeah, so what kind of designing do you get to do as a design engineer? So during my design co-op, so you'll be pleasantly surprised during most co-ops and internships that you get a lot of responsibility. They bring you in because they need your help. And so I was actually designing a portion of a future engine at GE Aviation, which is actually a flying engine now. So it was just a very small part of the engine, but I got to apply a lot of what I was learning and learn a ton of new things through that hands-on experience, which was extremely valuable. Do you work on propulsion systems of an aircraft, or do you work on the fuselage? Very detailed question, very impressive. So with an aerospace engineering degree, you can work in propulsion systems, you can work on the fuselage, which for anyone who doesn't know, the propulsion system of an aircraft is the actual engine, what powers the airplane to fly. And the fuselage is the body of the aircraft. So you sit in the fuselage when you're on an airplane. So the part that I was designing was in the actual jet engine. But in my studies at Virginia Tech, we had a senior design project. So it's a project that you do for a whole year and you spend a lot of time on it. And we designed a fuselage for that. Oh, this is a good one. Do you take co-ops together with your courses, or are they during different times? So like I said, so I was at Virginia Tech for 5 years, but I was actually only taking classes for about 3.5 years, 4 years. So the other year and a half, I was doing these co-op rotations. So essentially I would do school for a year, and then for 4 months, I would go do a co-op rotation, and then I would go back to school and learn more, and then do another co-op rotation. So I'll come back to the rest of these at the end if I have time. But let me move forward just a little bit. So that was school and co-op. So then I graduated, and through those co-op rotations, I kind of learned what I wanted to do after graduation. So I learned through my experiences that I didn't want to necessarily work in a manufacturing plant, and that I liked more of the design engineering combined with my last rotation, which was with Delta at the Atlanta airport, kind of being a consultant, and giving them ideas and solutions to problems that they had. So what I did after I graduated is I accepted a position at a company called Accenture, which Accenture is a technology consulting firm. And essentially what technology consulting is you have clients. So clients are companies all around the world. And all companies have problems. They have projects where they need specialty type people to solve those projects. And so they hire these consulting firms to work on those projects. So I currently do something very different than what I studied. And this is another really good life lesson that I learned that I will explain. But so I do something completely different from what I studied. I implement Workday, which is a cloud HR platform. So I implement an HR system at companies around the globe. It's a global role. And so what I can say is that I'm not currently using my technical aerospace engineering concepts that I learned at Virginia Tech. I'm not using all the jet engine stuff that I learned, all the propulsion stuff. However, what I am using is I am using the critical thinking and the problem solving skills that I developed while I was getting that degree. So throughout that degree, those critical thinking and problem solving skills grew exponentially. So I'm using those day in and day out. So my role essentially is kind of a mix of the technology and engineering parts of STEM mixed with business. And so I love what I do. My clients are global. So I travel a lot. Every other week I travel to Cincinnati or Seattle, wherever my client is. And I also get to have the opportunity to do a lot of international travel, which is fun. The really interesting thing about being a consultant is that every day brings a new challenge. I'm constantly doing different things. Every day I'm doing a different thing. When I'm done with one client, I go to a different client and I do something different. So it's lifelong learning. I'm constantly learning. There's not a day where I'm not learning something new. And that really keeps my brain going and is very appealing to me. As far as job description and responsibilities for a technology consultant, it can be very vague. There's a very wide range of what you can do, but essentially you're meeting with these companies to understand their requirements, and then you're building a system or a solution to what their problem is or what their project is. So skills and character traits that are really important for this type of role. There's 5 big ones that came to mind when I was thinking of it. Number 1 was communication. So communication is really important, being able to talk to the client, talk to your teammates, work together. So that kind of blends in with the second one of collaboration and teamwork. So even throughout my studies at Virginia Tech, our senior design project, it was a team of 5 of us, and we were working 40, 60 hours a week on this project together. So it's collaboration and teamwork skills are really important. 3 other ones, organization and time management. I know that applies to a lot of different roles. Being able to be organized and manage your time to do things efficiently, super important. And then creative thinking. So a lot of my job is they come to me with a problem, and I have to think creatively and come up with a solution that would work for them. So creative thinking is really important. And then the big one that I wish I had done more of in high school and in college, and even before high school, is technology, which all of you are probably better at technology than Mr. Reuter, Mrs. Gentine, and myself. So technology, Excel especially. I know a lot of people that have taken different careers in the technology and engineering, the STEM world, and they use Excel a lot. Excel is a very powerful tool. It can do a lot of things. So I definitely would say that is a good area if you have some spare time to play around with. So essentially, my current role kind of shows you that just because you go to get a STEM degree doesn't mean that you have to have a STEM related career after if it's not what you want to do. So I studied a very technical engineering type area, and I don't use the technical information. I just use the problem solving and the critical thinking skills as of right now. Now, if I wanted to go back into aerospace engineering, that's awesome. I totally could. So that STEM degree in the STEM area really proves that you're capable and you have the mindset to do a wide variety of careers. Let me take a look at your questions real quick. Are the hours demanding? They can be. It varies week by week. So some weeks are harder than other weeks, just like any career. You're going to have tough weeks and you're going to have easier weeks. So I would say consulting, you probably work a little more than some careers. But as long as you like what you're doing, that's okay. Because if you like what you're doing, you're going to continue to learn, you're going to enjoy what you're doing, and you're going to be happy. So I'm happy. So all is well there. How much coding do I do in a day? That's a great question. So as you all know, coding is a very high demand area. So I, in college, studying aerospace engineering, we did quite a bit of coding. And quite frankly, coding wasn't my favorite thing. It wasn't for me. So when I was looking for careers, I kind of looked for a role that didn't have a lot of coding. So I do a little coding day to day, and I know how to do it, but it's not something that my role revolves around. However, there's a ton of great roles out there for coding. So if you're someone who likes coding, by all means, that is a great route to go down. Is math an important part of your job? Great question. Math is very important to a lot of different careers. I do use math a lot. I use a lot of different kinds of math. I do a lot of mental math, which when you can do mental math, it impresses people. So the best you can do with your mental math, props to you. So yes, math is important, definitely a very good area. Do I design new airplanes? I don't currently design new airplanes, but when I was doing my co-op rotations at GE Aviation, we were building new airplanes, new jet engines, and whatnot. So yep, I have been in that field. How did you get your internships? Great question. So this will kind of lead into another question that I had written down to talk about. But how do you get co-ops and internships? So that kind of ties into a question someone asked of, does it really matter where you go to college? So my answer to does it really matter where you go to college is yes and no. So no, in the sense that furthering your education anywhere is wonderful. Highly encouraged, if you can, to further your education anywhere. However, going to a top, if you're interested, I'm going to speak for engineering since I studied engineering. But if you're interested in engineering, going to a top 20 engineering school will definitely help you. You'll get a lot more hands-on experience. They have a ton of research that you can get involved in. You learn a lot through research when you're studying. And most importantly, I can speak for Virginia Tech, is they have really good job fairs. So these schools that really focus in these STEM areas, companies come to the school and want students from those schools. So my co-op at GE Aviation and my role at Accenture currently both came from something called Engineering Expo at Virginia Tech, and that's a job fair where 500 companies pay to come to campus and recruit students. So does it really matter where you go to college? Yes and no. Anything is wonderful, but it can definitely open up more opportunities. Let's see what other questions you have. Is physics important for your job? So for my current job, physics is not important, but for some of my past experiences and a lot of careers in the STEM field, physics is very important. I like physics. I think physics is really interesting. I took physics in high school. I think it might be required. I'm not sure. I don't remember. And I took 2 years of physics at Virginia Tech. So I do like physics, and it is definitely a very interesting area to look into. Are co-ops a standard at lots of engineering schools? Very good question. So yes, for those top engineering schools, co-ops are very standard. I know, speaking locally, University of Cincinnati, very good engineering school, and they require co-ops. Co-ops are required at University of Cincinnati. At least they were. And yes, so let me answer a couple more questions, and then we'll do a time check. What courses in middle school or high school could help a student prepare for this type of career? So for a consulting, technology consulting type of career, AP courses are, any type of AP course is always great. AP courses in general are going to stimulate your mind. They're going to demonstrate advanced thinking. Would highly recommend any AP opportunities that you have. Like I mentioned earlier, any technology type courses you can take that would relate to Excel or any other types of technology are really good, really impressive. And then business mindset courses like personal finance, accounting, Common Zone, any of those types of things are also wonderful opportunities to help prepare you and to widen your skill set. As far as extracurricular activities that might help someone prepare for my job. Obviously, I've harped on co-op. A lot of universities have things called consulting clubs where they basically do practice cases of projects and whatnot. In high school, if there's any types of engineering or business clubs that you can join. And then the other one that's really important, volunteer work. Volunteer work's really important. It's going to help create a well-rounded individual. So it'll really help you develop your personal skills. And so volunteer work's really good. Let me see if there's any other key questions here. What other majors are related to your job? Yeah, so a lot of people that I work with didn't study aerospace engineering. A lot of them studied industrial systems engineering, computer science engineering, business information technology, management information systems, So a lot of those more technology side of the business school, or a lot of different engineering degrees. I work with a lot of those types of people. Well, let me do two more. I'll answer two more questions here. What advice would you give your high school self that might help students who are considering your type of career? Co-op, do what sounds interesting to you. If you do something that sounds interesting to you and you enjoy it, you're going to be learning for your whole life, lifelong learning, which is really good. So doing something that sounds interesting to you will definitely keep you happy and will keep you learning for the rest of your life. Excel classes, technology classes, and really working on communication skills, collaboration and teamwork skills, and the organization and time management. Those are the three skills that I really see that people would benefit from developing. And then last question I'll do here, I can't decide between business and engineering. Would you recommend an engineering degree with an MBA, or is an MBA helpful? I thought this was a really interesting question because honestly, this is something that I thought about for a while before I went to college. And quite frankly, my answer is if you can't decide between engineering and business, I would go with engineering. Quite frankly, I couldn't decide between engineering and business before I went to college, and I chose engineering. And having that engineering degree and developing that mindset opened the door to a lot of different opportunities. As far as the MBA question, you can always go back for an MBA. It's something that comes onto my mind relatively frequently. And I could see myself with my engineering degree going and getting my MBA if I see it helping me for a role in the future. As of right now, my career has kind of just kept going and moving further, and I haven't needed it yet. But if I reached a point in my career where the MBA would be helpful, I definitely think it would be a good thing to go get. So I know I'm probably a little over time. Is this a good point to cut off, Mrs. Gentine or Mr. Reuter?
Has Carl joined us yet? Doesn't.
I can keep going if you want.
No, I don't think Carl has joined yet.
You don't think he's joined us? Okay, maybe something's come up. I've checked email and so forth, but maybe something came up with our other speakers. So yeah, Brad, go ahead and feel free to continue going and answering questions. This has been great advice.
Okay, no problem. Okay, let's see what else I have. Feel free to add more questions to the chat if you have more. What changes, positive and negative, have taken place in your job or career recently or since you started? And how much have these changes affected you and or your career? So a big one that's come up recently that I know is on everybody's mind, COVID-19. So that affected everybody. That wasn't just me or my job or my industry. That affected everybody. So I can talk about some ways that affected my type of role. So I'm in a role where I'm used to traveling pretty often. I would say every other week I'm used to traveling. And so it's really taught me and my coworkers a lot about how to do things virtually. So of course we can't have any of our meetings in person. So we're learning how to do a lot of this via virtual, which I know everybody is going through at the moment. March and April, so the past 2 months, I was actually supposed to be traveling the world to gather requirements and laws from a lot of different countries for the HR system that I'm building right now. We were supposed to go to like 8 different countries around the world. Obviously, we couldn't do that. So we have had to kind of accommodate and figure out how to gather all of that information virtually in order to do that. So COVID-19 no doubt has affected my role, but we're definitely learning how to do things virtually, which is it's a really valuable skill to have, and it'll be interesting to see after how things are different. Let's see. Good question. So somebody with some type of disorder, such as anxiety, would you recommend them doing aerospace engineering with all the travel? And is it a high stress job? So good question. So as far as aerospace engineering goes, if it's something you're interested in, I would say follow your interests, and you can definitely get help. There's definitely people to help. And so I would definitely follow what interests you. Not all jobs in my field have to be a lot of travel. So I do travel a bit, but I could find projects where I don't have to travel. I live in Atlanta, and I could find projects in Atlanta with my company so that I didn't have to travel. I just travel because I like it. So definitely opportunities to not travel in a consultant role, although most consultants do travel. Is it a high stress job? There's always times where, yes, it's high stress. And I think a lot of different careers have times when they're high stress. And people can help you get through that. But yeah, so at times it is, and a lot of times it's not. Prime example today, me being able to step away from my job for a little bit to talk to you all is definitely more comforting and very enjoyable, and provides a little stress relief. So what kind of degrees do you need to become an aerospace engineer? So most aerospace engineers studied aerospace engineering. Some of them studied mechanical engineering, some industrial systems engineering, a lot of different fields, a lot of computer science. So yeah, a lot of different areas you can study. Did I plan to work in a job where I travel a lot? If so, how did you seek out a job with a lot of traveling? So when I was looking for jobs, I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to travel a lot. It kind of just worked out that the role I ended up with did have a lot of traveling. I would say a lot of consulting firms do quite a bit of travel. And there's definitely other jobs out there that are more travel-based jobs. And you'll definitely find that as you go through your further education or whenever you're looking for jobs, that role descriptions are pretty accurate in telling you whether it's going to be a traveling role or a work from office role. Or honestly, now these days, a lot of roles can also be done remotely. And we're seeing that a lot with our current situation. So job descriptions will also say whether a role will be remote. Are there any executive positions in aerospace engineering? So obviously, right as you enter your career, you're not going to start in an executive position. Be nice if you could, but you don't. So yes, there are executive positions within lots of different engineering fields. If you look at a lot of the big engineering manufacturing companies like GE, Procter and Gamble, there's a lot of companies in Cincinnati even. if you look at their executives, a lot of them have an engineering or a STEM related background. That's something that I found very interesting when I worked at GE, was a lot of the executives at GE had a STEM or engineering related background. And then over the years, moved out of the more technical engineering role and into more of a managerial role. And so I think a lot of companies work that way. So definitely opportunities there. Do you need to get really good grades to do a job like this? So I know a lot of talk is around grades and whatnot. It's a lot about what you think about. Grades are important. There's no lying there. Grades are important. It'll help you further your education somewhere. It'll help you get a job somewhere. So grades are definitely important. But there's a lot of other things that are important too. So your extracurricular activities, what else you're involved in, is really important. I would say extracurricular activities and grades are probably pretty equally as important. Grades might be a bit more. But in order to get into some schools or get certain jobs, you definitely, it would help to have good extracurricular activities in addition to good grades. Main subjects to become an aerospace engineer. So I would say things in middle school and high school to focus on to become an engineer in general. Math is really important. I would say math is probably the most important. So definitely focusing on math, science, a lot of good sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, all those types of areas are really good subjects to focus on to become an engineer. But in addition to those math and science fields, you also want to be a well-rounded student. So focusing on English, history, all those areas are also important just for your own knowledge and to make you a well-rounded individual. But as far as most important for becoming an engineer, math and science. Let's see, any other questions you all have?
Do we have any last minute questions, students, that you would like to submit?
Do I have a Cessna? we've got a plane lover in here. I do not have an aircraft. I do not have an airplane. It is interesting. So I graduated with, there were about 100 of us at Virginia Tech at my graduating aerospace engineering class. And looking on Facebook and whatnot at pictures and just looking at what careers people have taken, I would say out of the 100 people that I graduated with, 30 of them fly airplanes and probably 10 of them own airplanes. I do not.
That's funny. You know, Brad, you talked a lot about just being well-rounded, and Brad was the ultimate of being a well-rounded student. I don't think he will brag on himself, so I'll brag for him. But even though you did graduate 7 years ago, I remember very well you taking business electives and you being in the comment zone where you used a lot of problem solving skills. You learned to be a team player. You dealt with customer issues, sometimes that weren't easy to deal with. You managed some big projects and a lot of money. But that was in addition to, I also remember you off to the side, maybe during lunch, working on physics homework, or maybe going to change clothes for a tennis match. And so you were very well-rounded, and you looked for before you had the opportunity for co-ops and before we even had internships in high school, you looked for experiences just so you could figure out what were your differentiators, what made you Brad, what did you like, what did you not like, and I think that certainly helped you, and you were it was very intrinsic with you to look for those experiences and opportunities to try to figure out how that would shape you. So students, he definitely was the ultimate well-rounded student. And obviously you've done a great job. Yeah, I always wondered, like, will he end up in business? Because it just seemed to be something you were passionate about, but I also knew, that you loved engineering as well. So this has been very interesting. Any other questions for Brad today? Wow, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been one of the blessings of being quarantined, is being able to connect with people remotely like this. Especially our former comments. We love that. Well, I shouldn't say former. Once a comment, always a comment, right?
Exactly. And if there's any seniors on the call, congratulations to all of you. Big accomplishment. Very, very good work.
Very good. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for your time today, Brad. We'll be chatting soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mrs. Gentine.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.